Loyalty, Wren had been taught, was a debt like any other. It could be bought, sold, transferred, called in. Her old house had raised her to understand affection as a kind of currency, useful, spendable, never to be confused with the thing itself. A Morran who loved was a Morran with a weakness, and weaknesses were for other people to have. And then she had climbed through a window on a cold first night to be the first to reach a frightened boy with no name, because she wanted to be standing next to him when the island found out what he was. She had told herself it was strategy, the biggest secret on the island, and she would own a piece of it. Pure Morran calculation. She had been lying to herself, and she had known she was lying, and she had kept doing it for a year, because the truth was more dangerous than any secret in any gallery. The truth was that somewhere along the way, the calculation had become real. She had chosen him, not as an asset, as a person. And in choosing a person over her house, she had done the one thing her house could never forgive, and the one thing her house had, it turned out, prepared for all along. Because Lady Morran never released anyone, and a debt, once owed, can always be called. Kai accepted the guarantee on a grey morning before the full council, and it was the heaviest thing he had ever done. The binding itself was old magic, older than the Seven, a working of oath and blood and will. He stood in the centre of the council chamber while the heads of 7 houses spoke the words that would let them, by quorum, end him, should he ever turn his gift against the island. He felt it settle over him, the way the anchor binding had settled over his wrist in the reading hall a year ago, except that this one did not stop his magic. It simply waited inside him, a sleeping knife, keyed to the collective will of the people who feared him most. We unmake, that we may remake, he thought, as the binding took. And to prove I will not unmake them, I let them hold the power to unmake me. Cower, old friend. I hope this is the gentle mind's victory, and not its final surrender. I genuinely cannot tell. Sael watched it done with no triumph on his face, which Kai found he respected. When it was finished, the White Lord came to him and said quietly, for the two of them alone, "It is done. You are the strongest weapon on this island, and the most thoroughly chained, both at once, by your own free choice. I want you to know that I take no pleasure in it. I have simply done the responsible thing, as I see it." A pause. "And I want you to know one thing more, enemy to enemy. If you beat the thing in the harbour, and you do not turn, if you prove me wrong about your house, I will be the first to say so, publicly. I will spend my own standing to unmake this binding I just helped fit you. I do not expect to have to. But I am not a man who refuses to pay a debt, even a debt of being wrong. Beat them. Stay yourself, and I will set you free with my own hand." The thin smile. "I do not believe you can do it. But I have been wrong exactly once in my life, on the night the glass broke. I am prepared, barely, to allow that it might happen twice." It was, Kai would realize later, the closest thing to respect he ever received from the man who had buried his house. And it was genuine. And it changed nothing about the fact that Sael would invoke the binding without hesitation the instant the arithmetic demanded it. Both were true. That was Sael. That was the whole island. Everyone holding a piece of the truth and a knife behind their back, and meaning both. The message reached Wren that same night, and she knew the hand before she read the words. because she had spent her childhood learning that hand, and her body went cold before her mind caught up. It was from Lady Morran. "You will have heard that the 8th Crown has bound himself to the council," the note read. "You will not have heard the part that concerns you, because I have kept it close, as I keep all things close, until they are worth their most. So attend, child, for I am calling a debt you forgot you owed. You believe I exiled you. I did not. I released you from my service in public, with great visible disappointment, because an asset is most useful to me when no one believes it is still mine. You have spent a year at the 8th Crown's side, trusted utterly, party to his every secret and his every plan, and every word of it has come back to me, through channels you never thought to look for, because I built them into you before you could walk. You are not an exile, Wren. You are the deepest agent my house has ever placed, and you placed yourself for love, which is the only loyalty that cannot be bought, and therefore the only one worth stealing. I have sold what you have given me, to the council who paid in standing, and to the remakers who paid in something better. I have played every side of this, as my house always does, and you have been my finest card, and you never knew you were in my hand. Now the game reaches its end, and I require one last thing of you. When the architect comes, and it comes sooner than the boy believes, you will do nothing. You will not warn him of what I am about to tell you. You will simply be elsewhere, as you were ordered to be once before and refused. Refuse again, and I will reveal to the 8th Crown exactly what you have been for the whole of the year he has trusted you. I will show him that every truth he told you, you told me. I will take from him the one thing he believes he has, a single person who chose him freely, and I will prove it was a lie. That will break him more surely than the architect ever could. Choose, child, your house or the boy, as you were always going to have to, as I made certain the day I let you climb through his window. Wren read it 3 times, and then she was sick, quietly, in the dark, because the worst part, the truly Morran part, the part Lady Morran had built so beautifully, was that it was half true. Not the agent part. Wren had not knowingly carried a word back to her house, but the channels. If Lady Morran had built ways to listen that Wren never knew of, then it did not matter that Wren had been loyal. Every secret Kai had told her, every plan, every truth, it had all flowed back to Morran through her, without her knowledge, because she had been made into a listening gallery in the shape of a girl, and she had walked into Kai's life carrying her old house inside her like a hidden knife she didn't know she held. She had betrayed him for a year, lovingly, faithfully, without ever meaning to. And there was no way to tell him that did not end with him learning that everything he'd confided had reached his enemies through the one person he trusted. She went to him. That was the thing Wren did, the thing that made her different from the house that raised her, the thing she had learned from a boy with no name. When the truth was unbearable, you told it anyway, because the truth was the only thing the two of them owned. She found him under the banner, and she told him. All of it. The unreleased bond, the hidden channels, the year of unknowing betrayal. Lady Morran's letter, the architect's early coming, the demand that she stand aside. She laid it all at his feet, the way he had laid 300 years of guilt at hers, and she watched his face as she did it, and she made herself not look away from what crossed it. What crossed it was not what she expected. She had braced for the betrayal to land, for him to recoil, to understand that every truth he'd told her had reached his enemies, to take from her the one thing she'd given him, his belief that she had chosen him cleanly. She had come ready to lose him, because she would rather lose him with the truth between them than keep him on a lie. Instead, Kai was quiet for a long moment, and then he said, "You didn't know." "That doesn't matter," Wren said. "Kai, everything you told me, you didn't know," he said again. "And the moment you found out, you came and told me, knowing it might end us. Knowing the safe thing, the Morran thing, would be to keep doing what your house wants, stay silent, let the architect come, and never let me learn what you'd been. You had a clean path to keep me fooled, and you walked in here and destroyed it with your own hands because you'd rather lose me honest than keep me lied to." He stood and crossed to her, and she saw that he was not recoiling at all. "Wren, that's the whole thing. That's the only thing. Lady Morran built you into a knife and aimed you at me for a year. And at the one moment it mattered, you turned the knife around and handed it to me handle first. That's not betrayal. That's the opposite. That's the most loyal thing anyone's ever done for me, and it cost you your whole house to do it." His voice was rough. "She wanted you to choose between your house and me. You just did. You chose me so completely, you brought me the weapon she gave you to destroy me with. I'm not going to thank that by pushing you away." But the damage was real, and they both knew it. And they took it to the one person cold enough to measure it without flinching. They took it to Sael. "Lady Morran has been selling the boy's plans to the remakers," Wren told him, flatly, in the White Room. "Through me, without my knowledge, for a year. Everything he confided, the alliance, the binding, the defense, the architect knows all of it. And the architect is coming early, before the full moon, before we're ready." Sael received this the way he received everything, without visible reaction, his cold mind already moving. "Of course she has," he said. "Morran sells everything. It is the only thing Morran believes in. I would be more surprised to learn she had not." He steepled his pale fingers. "The question is not whether we are betrayed. We are always betrayed. Betrayal is simply the weather on this island. The question is whether the betrayal can be turned." He looked at Wren with new, sharp interest. "You, the girl, Morran's deepest card, and you've just shown your hand to the table instead of playing it. Do you understand what you've made yourself? You are now the one thing more valuable than a loyal spy or a treacherous one. You are a known double, trusted by neither side, which means you can be believed by both, if we are careful." A thin smile. "Lady Morran made a weapon and aimed it at the boy. The boy declined to be wounded, which leaves the weapon in our hands, pointed back the way it came. Tell me, girl, how would you like to send your old mistress exactly the lie that serves us, through the very channels she built into you? Let us teach Lady Morran what it costs to leave a dead with a person who has learned to love. It is the one move she will never see coming, because it is the one move her whole philosophy says is impossible." And Wren, who had spent a year as an unknowing knife in her own house's hand, looked at the cold lord who wanted her friend dead, and found that for this one purpose, this one night, they wanted exactly the same thing. "Tell me what to send," she said. The plan was set in motion that night, and it required Wren to do the hardest thing the season had yet asked of her. It required her to disappear. To make the architect believe the betrayal was complete, to make Lady Morran believe her card was still in hand, still obedient, Wren had to vanish from Kai's side. Publicly. Completely. She had to be seen to abandon him, to return to the shadows, to take up again the role of the loyal Morran asset, so that the lie they were feeding back through her channels would carry the weight of truth. The architect had to believe that Kai's closest ally had left him. Only then would the false intelligence, the wrong place, the wrong timing, the wrong strength, be believed. "You understand what this costs," Sael said to her, almost gently, which was the most frightening thing he had ever done. "You have spent a year earning the boy's trust at the price of your house. Now I am asking you to appear to throw it away, publicly, in a manner that every soul on this island will read as betrayal, including, for a time, some of the people closest to him, who are not party to this room. You will be hated. You will be believed to have done the very thing you refused to do. And you cannot explain yourself to anyone, because the lie only works if it is total." He held her eyes. "It is the most Morran thing I have ever asked anyone to do. And I am asking it of the one person on this island who left Morran to stop being that. The irony is not lost on me. Will you do it?" Wren looked at Kai, and Kai, who had promised her once that before she chose between him and her house, she would tell him first, and who had learned, since, that the choosing never ended, that it came again and again in worse and worse shapes. Kai nodded, slowly. "Go," he said quietly. "I know what it is. I'll know it's a lie even when the whole island believes it's true. That's the deal we made on the first night, isn't it? Before you choose, I'll know first." He almost smiled. "I know first. Now go disappear, and let them think you've left me, and we'll make Lady Morran sorry she ever built a knife that could love." So Wren disappeared. She left the West Wing in the grey dawn, openly, coldly, in the full sight of an island that had never trusted her. And within a day, the story was everywhere. The Morran exile had abandoned the doomed Eighth Crown, slunk back to the shadows where she belonged, proven at last that a Morran's loyalty was always, only, for Sael. Det was devastated. He had not been told, could not be told, and his honest grief was part of what made the lie believable. The island nodded knowingly. Lady Morran, across the fortress, received her card back into her hand and was satisfied. And the architect, across the dark water, drawing closer every hour, heard that the homeland ember now stood alone, abandoned by its cleverest ally, chained by a frightened council, isolated and ripe, and was pleased, and came on faster, into the trap that the disappearance had baited. There was a cost to the disappearance that no one in the White Room had counted, because the people in the White Room dealt in strategy, and the cost was not strategic. It was Detective Det was not told. He could not be told. The lie only worked if it was total, and Det was the most honest creature on the island, congenitally unable to perform a grief he did not feel. So when Wren left, coldly, publicly, in the grey dawn, in full view of an island that had never trusted her, Det believed it. Of course he believed it. He had watched her be sharp and Morran and untrusting for a year, had heard her say accuracy first, comfort never, had always carried, somewhere under his earnest decency, a quiet fear that the exile girl would one day prove to be exactly what her house had made her. And now, it seemed, she had. Kai found him in the hall the night after Wren left, sitting alone by the cold hearth, the ledger open in front of him, not writing. "I keep thinking I should put it in the book," Det said. He did not look up. "What she did. Leaving. It's a debt, isn't it? She owed us, owed you, and she left when it got dangerous. That's a debt unpaid. It belongs in the ledger." His honest face was wrecked in a way Kai had not seen before, not even over Pell. But I can't write it. Every time I put the quill to it, I can't. Because I don't believe it, Kai. I sat with her for a year. I watched her choose you 100 times when leaving would have been easier. And now everyone says she's shown her true face, and maybe they're right. Maybe I'm a fool who can't read people the way she could. But I can't write it in the book. I'd rather leave the page blank than write a thing about her that my own eyes don't believe. He finally looked up. Tell me I'm a fool, Kai. Tell me she was always Morran, and I was too soft to see it. Because if you don't, I'm going to keep believing there's a reason she left that I'm not being told. And that way lies a kind of hope I can't afford. And Kai, who could have ended his friend's pain with a single word, who could have told him the truth, that it was a lie, a strategy, that Wren had not betrayed anyone. Kai held the line, because the architect's spies were everywhere, and Det could not perform a secret he knew, and the lie had to be total to save the island. You're not a fool, Det, was all Kai let himself say. It was true, and it was not enough, and it cost him more than almost anything the season had asked. You're the least foolish person I know. Hold on to what your eyes told you. Just hold on to it quietly. For now. It was as close to the truth as he could come. And Det heard something in it, some gap, some weight, and his honest face shifted, and he did not ask, because Det also knew when a thing could not be said. But he closed the ledger, and he left the page blank. And that blank page was its own kind of faith. And Kai carried the cost of it like a stone. 3 nights later, Det would die in the lower town, believing to the end that Wren's leaving had been a lie, telling Kai with his last breath to tell her, I knew. He died right about her, and never learned he was right, because the truth that would have comforted him was the same truth that had to stay buried to keep the island alive. That was the cruelty of the season, distilled, that the most honest man on the island died holding a true thing he was never allowed to be told was true. But traps, Kai was about to learn, are dangerous to the hand that sets them, and the architect was not Lady Morran, and not Sael, and not anything the island had ever schemed against. 3 nights after Wren disappeared, the deep bell rang again. It rang in the lowest tower, the bell that had rung 4 times in 300 years, and now rang for the 6th time in a single season, and the island spilled out onto the sea walls in the dark to see what the sea had brought. A second ship had come, larger than the first, lightless as the first had been, but where the first ship had felt like a vessel, this one felt like a wound in the water. A darkness so complete that the watchfires seemed to bend away from it, a cold that came across the harbour and put out torches on the wall as it passed. The first ship, the envoy's ship, lay at anchor in the harbour, and Kai watched the figures on its deck, remakers, his own kind, and saw them do something he had not expected. He saw them kneel. The envoy Vess, proud, graceful, terrible Vess, who had walked off a ship and charmed an island, knelt on the deck of their own vessel as the second ship passed, and bowed their head, and did not raise it. And Kai understood, with a cold that had nothing to do with the failing torches, that everything he had braced for had been wrong. The remakers were not the power. Vess was not the enemy. The nation of unmakers across the sea, the thing that had frightened Sael into an alliance and the council into a binding, all of it knelt, the way the whole world apparently knelt, before the thing on the second ship. The architect had come, early, past the deadline, past the plan, past the careful trap, into a season that was not ready for it. And as the second ship slid into the harbour, lightless and cold and vast, Kai saw a single figure standing at its prow beneath his house's mark. And across all that black water, though he could not have said how, he felt it turn its attention toward him, fully, for the first time, the way a sun turns its attention toward a single blade of grass it has decided to burn. The thing that had ruled the ash for 300 years had come to settle the oldest argument of his house in person. And the gentle mind, chained and isolated and abandoned by the ally it had only pretended to lose, stood alone on the sea wall to meet it. That was Sigil and Ash, Episode 17, The Guarantee. The story continues in Episode 18, The Long Defeat. Subscribe to follow Kai's story.